Recording in progress.
Welcome into the latest episode of Betting the Pitch with your host, Real_G Warner. Tonight's episode will be the Europa League, and our best bets are still killing it. After Dortmund were unable to beat Borussia Mönchengladbach on the road this weekend, we're now 18-4, 82% year to date, 9-0 our last 9, and 14-1 our last 15. So you should stick around for the end of the show. I'm going to pick my favorite best bet from the early slate of Europa League, starting at 12:45 Eastern time, and then also of the 2 p.m. Central time, 3 p.m. Eastern time, and mash those together, select my favorite, and we'll see if I can get another win on the board. If you're not a member of my Patreon, check it out, patreon.com/Real_G Warner. Best plays to get all my plays, leans, write-ups, everything across all sports, including a hot start to college basketball season. But we'll start in the Europa League. We'll start in Rome for Roma hosting Sporting Braga. As I make sure that I get this tweeted out so people know that I am live. And that is done now. So let's get into it. So Roma, 3/4 goal favorite at home right now to Sporting Braga. Totals 2.5. This one a little bit more juice to over and slightly more juice on the Roma side as well. Roma, as you can see, a scarf behind my shoulder, well placed for the first batch that we're covering. I've not been a fan of Roma and how they performed this year, and it's not really. There's no time for fanhood in this life that I live, but. Ultimately, I've been playing against them as much as possible, betting against their offense and really trying to just make them prove that they can score goals, which I still don't really believe that they can. They've been through multiple managers. I think they're on their fourth one of the year if you count a caretaker manager after Daniele De Rossi was fired. But Ivan Juric went right before or during the international break. In comes Claudio Ranieri, and he's a Roman from the past, played at Roma, and there's a lot of respect for him. But I haven't really seen much from Roma this entire season. Now, of course, with all the chopping and changing of managers has not helped. Maybe they have some stability now and got a big win this weekend against Lecce. But the first goal was scored off of a deflection, and that really broke the seal. However, then they conceded a penalty, and it was 1-1 before 3 late goals in the second half. They were throughout the second half, so maybe not late. But ultimately, I feel like the goals were second goal was a header on a cross into the box. Of course, those are possible, especially when a team's going into Rome and defending a lot. Lecce probably more so than Sporting Braga, but different league, Portuguese league versus an Italian Serie A club that knows what they're heading into and what they're dealing with a huge traveling support as well. And then late goal, we saw like a defender tears ACL, it looked like, or just a really bad knee injury, which led to a breakaway. And so like a lot of those things work together. I think Roma, they're going to still have to prove it to me more than beating they were 1 goal favorite at home, though it felt maybe if looking back on it, hindsight is of course always 2020. Felt like it was a little cheap considering the differences between the clubs there. But I mean, I was pretty much betting against Roma scoring goals. I felt like it didn't work out this weekend, of course, but I don't think I'm afraid of this Roma club just yet. Claudio Ranieri recently, I mean, he's famed for winning the Premier League with Leicester City, but he also most recently was at Cagliari, which he was basically playing as defensively as possible just to stay in the league. It didn't really work out. But I just don't know necessarily that he's the one that's going to guide Roma back to success. They're a 3/4 goal favorite. They need to win this match to climb up the table, certainly in the Europa League, to try to make sure, or I don't know if they're out of the running for a bye in that first, I think, 8 places that get through to the second round automatically. But there's a bunch that they need to do in order to get through the next round. And it does start with Sporting Braga, who I feel like they've been on kind of a roller coaster ride. Sporting Braga were in Champions League a couple seasons ago, got a pretty good group, and then really disappointed. I don't think that Braga have been great this year either. They stole, a late win at home earlier. for some reason that match, I don't even know who they're playing, sticks out in my mind as a late theft of one of those matches. Roma certainly could use one of those, but you certainly don't want that if you're backing a home favorite of 3/4 of a goal required by win by more than one goal to take my full Braga unit if you put it out there. So I lean to Braga getting that 3/4 of a goal. I think I might be more interested in under 2.5. What if you're playing under as opposed to 2.5? You're essentially, or under 2.5 as opposed to 3/4 of a goal. Of course, if you're taking the 3/4 of a goal, you're leaning more on the side that Sporting Braga makes this game can score. I don't know that I see that. Roma's defense, I think, is I mean, it's been problematic so far this season. That's why they haven't been getting results. But I do think that's their strong side at this point. And I feel like the transition from Juric, who was playing 3 center backs and wanting to possess the ball like crazy, but also play a little bit direct, it's kind of differing reports on how Roma wanted to play. And clearly we're going way deep on this matchup. But I just feel like there's, I mean, I wouldn't hate anyone or wouldn't be say anyone was making a mistake playing Sporting Braga on the side and the under and hoping to potentially try to hit both of them or maybe at worst split. But I think if I had to pick one right now as we record live on Thursday evening here or Wednesday evening here in the United States, it'd be nice to record it Thursday after the matches happened and be able to bet it. But I'll take under 2.5 as my biggest interest in that first matchup. Move next to Ludogorets hosting AZ Alkmaar from the Dutch Eredivisie. Ludogorets in Bulgaria. Ludogorets a quarter goal underdog at home with all the juice totals 2.5, juice slightly more to under. So Ludogorets have been an under player's dream this entire tournament. Unfortunately, they were up 1-0 on Athletic Club, who I think are now leading Europa League in the standings as they just played a Wednesday match this week, which I was not prepared for. Oops. But Ludogorets had a 1-0 lead on Athletic Club from La Liga and were unfortunately unable to hold on to that lead. Conceded 2 goals, I think, in a minute, amazingly. Minute of game time might have been 2 minutes apart in the actual numbers. But Ludogorets, I mean, they're at home. They're welcoming in a Dutch side that, I mean, I've gone on record or been on a lot of these podcasts. If you've been listening on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, it's called Betting the Pitch. If you're on YouTube, you're at @the_real_G Warner. If you want the 1-minute video, stay on YouTube at @the_real_G Warner. Go to Instagram at @the_real_G Warner. But it's really, to me, been of course, there are drastic road home splits for every team in every sport, essentially. But I feel like the Dutch clubs really miss their home fans when they have to go on the road in these European competitions. So for that reason, I like the Ludogorets side. I don't really know how they're going to score goals, though, and that's the biggest problem. So I think for me, under 2.5 is my biggest interest in that matchup. Moving next to Malmo, hosting Galatasaray in, I think Malmo are in Sweden. They're half a goal underdog at home with all the juice. Total is 3.25, juice all the way to under. Long trip for Galatasaray to Malmo, wherever the heck it is. And it's going to be Galatasaray's big names, famous European players who are kind of on the wrong sides of their career or are in contract battles like Victor Osimhen, formerly of Napoli and Lille. But Malmo, to me, I mean, this is the big names that come in and they're a road favorite. So how much do you trust Malmo and how much do you want to get involved with that? That's the biggest question. I do think that the 3.25, pretty much any total above 3, I think it says something, especially when a lot of those goals are expected from the road team as a road favorite. And of course, with all the big names, I feel like the Turkish clubs, they spend a ton of money on their players, but they really don't deliver in these competitions very well or very much or very often. So I'm interested in Malmo getting a half of a goal and into under 3.25 that matchup as well. Moving next to Olympiacos of Piraeus in Athens. They are hosting FC Twente, another Dutch side on the road. Hitting the Europa League road this weekend or this, I guess, Thursday. Olympiacos currently a 3/4 goal favorite at home. All the juice on Twente on the road. Over under is 2.75, juiced all the way to under. And usually late night with the real_G Warner, you get yawns, but brace yourselves. I think a sneeze is coming. And I know if I hold in a sneeze, I kill a brain cell. And I've only got so many left that I can podcast with. So I got to keep this going as long as possible. Okay, maybe it passed. But anyway, Olympiacos, I mean, they've been, I think, outperforming expectations in Europe. Of course, they've got a lot of money, big club in Greece, but that doesn't really register on the landscape of the Europa League or any of these European competitions. FC Twente, though, they're not really a big name from the Dutch Eredivisie, from at least in the last few years. And I feel like they've been very defensive in a lot of the games they've watched, including getting a draw on the road at Old Trafford against Manchester United. Different, of course, situation here going to Olympiacos. They play a high line under Jose Luis Mendilibar from La Liga, formerly of Eibar and Sevilla and other places as well. Somehow won a Europa League, actually. So maybe this is his competition, or maybe that's just a Sevilla thing. But I think my biggest interest in this one, rather than backing Twente's offense, is to back FC Twente and shot as they're under 2 3/4 this matchup. Not a team total, but for the whole game, FC Twente under 2 3/4 in that matchup. Moving next to PAOK, PAOK, Thessaloniki from Greece. Also, they're hosting Ferencvaros of Budapest in Hungary. Hungaria. PAOK, a half a goal favorite with a little bit more juice. Totals 2.5, juice more to the under. Ferencvaros are a defensive side no matter where they play. We know what we're going to get. I kind of like playing them and honestly their sides and also their unders at home, because you'd expect a lot of times for home teams to be a lot more expensive. Ferencvaros are not expansive or expensive anywhere. Half a goal underdogs from a PAOK team that's been pretty disappointing, I think, in this competition. They were talking about like earlier in the competition, like they needed to win, must win, or they'd be eliminated. Not that that was going to happen with 8 match days or whatever. And we're only on match day 6, but I can remember that I think at match day 3 or 4, and some late goals from PAOK did a really big thing, I think, to kill an underforming, which is pretty brutal. But I think the Ferencvaros side is interesting to me. I just don't really want to trust someone that goes away from home and tries to stall the game out the whole way. Because if they fall behind 1-0, I don't know necessarily that, of course, Ferencvaros will eventually come out of that shell. But until that happens, I think I'm more interested in under 2.5, seeing how long Ferencvaros can go without conceding that first goal. And when they do score, they get more defensive. So I like that setup as well. So I'll lean under 2.5 in that matchup. Moving next to TSG Hoffenheim of the German Bundesliga, taking on FCSB, just letters for Stade Bucharest, I believe, Bucuresti from Romania. Currently Hoffenheim a 1.25 favorite with more juice on FCSB, totals 3, juice all the way to under. Hoffenheim have been, there's been rumors about them sacking American manager Pellegrino Matarazzo forever. It finally happened. They brought in a manager from the Champions League, Sturm Graz in Austria, and he's been awful. Was not impressed with him at an Austrian club that somehow won a league title and made it out of the Österreich Bundesliga into the Champions League, and really hasn't looked great or well coached. And surprise, surprise, it hasn't worked really well for him in the Europa League or the Bundesliga so far. So as a big favorite, that certainly makes me look at FCSB. I just don't really have that great of insight into FCSB's talent level and what the divide between an Andre Kramaric, for example, starting for the Croatian national team most matches versus a Stade Bucharesti side, probably built of a lot of Romanian players who are good, but it's a little bit different than the German Bundesliga, one of the top 5 leagues in the world. So lean to FCSB getting a 1.25 and lean to under 3, because I feel like that's probably the best way FCSB go to get a result. Hoffenheim are not a great defense, and that's something I've been trying to exploit in their matches against able teams. I just don't know that FCSB is one of those. And unfortunately, that doesn't go great for playing an under if Hoffenheim are going to lose 3-2. Moving next to Union Saint-Gilloise hosting Olympique Gymnastique Club de Nice. Currently, Saint-Gilloise a half a goal favorite at home. I was very surprised at seeing this number. It's very juiced on the Nice side, so this is probably about a quarter in a lot of places, or certainly looks to trend that way. Totals 2.5, juiced all the way to under. Union Saint-Gilloise, they've been a great story. Have been putting great players into great teams, like Boniface, striker at Bayer Leverkusen, amongst others. But they haven't really been the same club, and this is a pretty expensive price. Now, Nice, I thought was against Nice this weekend. They were pretty much outplayed by Le Havre, a definite relegation fighter in Ligue 1 in France, who's been somehow able to stay in the league a couple seasons. But basically, all the stats at halftime favored Le Havre on the road in the south of France in the Côte d'Azur, but ultimately, unfortunately, gave up a penalty, and that kind of opened the floodgates, fell behind 2-0, and then scored a late goal to kill, unfortunately, my under and push the side, which I guess was a little bit better in a similar direction. Is certainly better than Nice scoring, but a 2-0 Nice victory would have at least split the two. Instead, I lost one and pushed one. But welcome to soccer betting, especially late goals and stoppage time, especially for unders. Not great. But Nice has a half a goal underdog away from home. I'm tempted by. I want to see what the Nice lineup looks like. They did play Pablo Rosario, a center midfielder, defensive midfielder, you could say, at center back this weekend, which is not a great situation for them. That's showing their limitations there. They've got like a 40-plus captain in central defense, Donchi, or spelled Dante, but I guess it's Donchi if you're pronouncing the way the Brazilians want to. Total's 2.5 in this one, and I lean generally to unders with Nice. They've not been as profitable lately, but that's my belief that they're going to be a little bit more conservative away from home. So I like that half of a goal on the road in Brussels, Belgium, and I lean to under 2.5 as well. I think Nice have a very defensive manager. I think we see a defensive game plan, especially making up for some absentees in their defensive back line. To the last matchup of the 12:45 Eastern Time, 11:45 Central Time, where I'm recording from Dallas, Texas. We have Victoria Plzeň of Czechia, or Czech Republic. They're hosting Manchester United, and Victoria Plzeň are a 1-goal underdog at home with more of the juice. Total is 2.75. Used to split both ways. Manchester United have started to score, or at least see more goals in their matches. Ruben Amorim, his style, his strategy is kind of taking in, and we're kind of seeing what it looks like. It's very similar to what he's playing at Sporting Club de Portugal in Lisboa or Lisbon, which we'll see what that, I guess, stepping away. If we're talking about Christian Ilse leaving Sturm Graz, we should certainly talk about Ruben Amorim dropping down a competition, especially when Sporting Lisboa had just beaten Manchester City in his last match in the Champions League. But Manchester United, they are, to me, stuck because their players are not built for that system. They're essentially surrounding Matthijs de Ligt, or I think Harry Maguire, and they're central of the 3-man back line, just with more able-bodied players, because those guys just can't seem to move. I think Maguire, slabhead, far worse than de Ligt, but de Ligt doesn't seem very fast, to say the least. And I think trying to figure out what those side center back positions, right center back, left center back, what that's going to look like. If they're playing fullbacks there is a big question as well. And Victoria Plzeň, they were so good in Europa Conference League last season. Big difference, of course, step up to the Europa League this year. But I thought they played really well. They had a home win against Real Sociedad. And to me, they've been, I think, far more impressive than most of the clubs from the smaller nations. Czechia certainly has great success, and Slavia Prague has been great in this competition as well. I lean to Victoria Plzeň getting that full goal of insurance. I also like the under 2.75. I'll be waiting to see if some Manchester United money hits and we can get a 3 to have a very crucial push in case of a late goal. Moving to the late window, but before we get there, certainly I got to give you a best bet from the early slate, and that'll be Victoria Plzeň, a 1-goal underdog to Manchester United. Also, want to make sure that you stick around and hang out for the ultimate best bet coming end of show, because 18-4, 82% is hard to beat. But while you're here, thank you for listening to the podcast. If you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, if you leave a 5-star review, it's huge for the search rankings. For an Apple Podcast, if you could hit subscribe, that would be great too. We've got a lot of stuff coming out on this channel. Of course, all the soccer stuff I'm doing, plus the NFL podcast coming out Tuesday nights. We discuss where we expect the lines to go. My buddy A_Snicker and I, and we put out our best bets. We haven't had a great run the last few weeks, but we're rounding to form, and where we really took off last season was in the playoffs and really start of this year. So hoping to have that same type of thing through the end of this season and into early of next year before we have a little bit of a lull, I guess, when college basketball starts. Hopefully that's not what happened and won't happen again, but maybe that's what happened, because I've been barely sleeping for what feels like a month. But check us out and try to, any feedback you have, of course, put that in a comment and I will read it or have one of my co-hosts read it. So getting to the afternoon window, we start with, first on the list is Ajax hosting Lazio in Amsterdam. Ajax are a quarter goal favorite at home right now. More juice on Lazio. Total is 2.75, juice almost all the way to over. Lazio were in first before this match. They started with Athletic Club on Wednesday, but Lazio have been awesome. I've been looking and backing them as an underdog as much as I could. They were an underdog, somehow closed an underdog to FC Twente Anschada from, we already discussed, from the Dutch Eredivisie, and got a red card on the other team and then won 2-0 pretty easily. Ajax are a team in transition. They used to be a giant. Of course, a lot of you would remember making it to the Champions League final not too long ago. But they've certainly fallen on hard times. They're in the Europa League, and I think qualified through the playoffs to get here, which was important, and it certainly shows that Ajax are getting back on track. But this is a big deal. Lazio are good. They've been good in Italy and Serie A. They've been playing a bunch of matches with the Coppa Italia last week, 2 matches back-to-back with Napoli. But I think Lazio, to me, as an underdog, is the only way I can look in this one. I lean to under 2 3/4 also. I still feel like Ajax and their really poor defense and trying to outscore everyone from the past, decade. I feel like that's made their totals higher than they should be. I don't think I've really made enough money on that so far this year, but they have a very defensive manager who came in from France, and I feel like there's some value on playing unders, or at least potentially going against an Ajax offense, which you could certainly do with Lazio getting a quarter of a goal. Moving next to Bodo Glimt hosting Besiktas. Bodo Glimt of, I think, Norway, and they are hosting Besiktas of the Turkish Super League in Turkey. Currently, Bodo Glimt, a 3/4 goal favorite with more juice, totals 3 1/4, juice really heavily to under. Bodo Glimt, they're an open team. They like to score goals. They certainly went to Manchester United with that plan and were on the front foot the whole time. That makes 3 1/4 as a total look a little bit lower than it would be over that key number of 3. I think Besiktas are certainly, speaking of Lazio just a second ago, they still have Ciro Immobile as their kind of leader, penalty kick taker, and he's awesome from the spot. Will he get one away from home? Less likely, of course. But Besiktas is a side I want here as a 3/4 goal underdog. I don't know necessarily if that is close enough for me to want to play it, but certainly the side that feels too big. And I guess if I'm going with that same sort of idea that if it's above 3, I'm under is for me. I'll look at that one as well. Moving next to Maccabi Tel Aviv hosting Rigas Futbol Skola, I believe of Latvia, and Tel Aviv, of course, of Israel, but not playing any matches there in the Europa League this season. Maccabi Tel Aviv, a 1-goal favorite with juice split both ways, totals 2 3/4, just really heavily to under. If you want to gamble, I think Rigas Futbol Skola is worth a look. I just like to be against Maccabi Tel Aviv at any kind of point. I don't think they're very good, but neither are Rigas Futbol Skola, RFS for short. A big question, especially because, there are no matches going on in Tel Aviv as far as I know this entire season. And unfortunately, you are paying a price as a pseudo home team when you're not one. So RFS +1 I like. And I also feel like there's going to be less scoring because you don't have a big home field advantage or home pitch advantage. And so under 2 3/4 looks good to me too. Next on the list, we'll go to Elfsborg hosting Karabag, currently a pick'em. Elfsborg, a slight favorite. I want to say they're Swedish. Karabag of Azerbaijan. Totals 3 in this one. My biggest interest is not expecting a lot of goals and seeing under 3. Moving next to Lyon hosting Eintracht Frankfurt. And if I angle the camera down, you can see my Olympique Lyonnais practice kit, jersey, whatever, shirt from 5 years ago now, almost 6. Gosh, I'm glad it still fits and hasn't fallen apart just yet. Good French engineering or something. Lyon, a 1/4 goal favorite to Eintracht Frankfurt. Total is 3, juice more to the over, and more juice on the Lyon side right now. Eintracht Frankfurt would have been certainly worth a look just a week ago, then really struggled on the road at Leipzig in the DFB Pokal. Certainly, Leipzig have been great in the Pokal, but also were entering in a huge rut, tailspin, whatever you want to call it. And Frankfurt were flying second in the Bundesliga and looked like they were going to knock them out. Closed a small underdog and got a lot of money bet on Eintracht Frankfurt right into the kickoff. But didn't work out, and then they kind of struggled with Football Club Augsburg, who hadn't won on the road in forever. Had some big goalkeeping mistakes. I imagine Kevin Trapp, one of the more trustworthy goalkeepers in the Bundesliga and maybe in the world, should certainly figure that out. But wasn't great, and now they go to Lyon, who are playing really well. Lyon dominated Angers on the road, newly promoted side from Ligue 2 to Ligue 1 in France, but ultimately a team that's been in the top division for a lot of the most recent past, probably a lot of the 2000s. But Lyon dominated the whole game. They had Angers basically like trying to survive from minute 1, it felt like. Eintracht Frankfurt are, I think, set up to counterattack, and they have the pace and the skill to do that. Ugo Ekitike, who came over from Paris Saint-Germain, certainly will know a lot of the players on the Lyon side. I'm interested in Eintracht Frankfurt at the current quarter of a goal. I don't think I want much to do with the total. And I think I want to probably get more from Eintracht Frankfurt than the current quarter of a goal. Moving next to FC Porto of Lisbon. Excuse me, not of Lisbon. Wow, that'd been bad. FC Porto of Portugal, the country. There we go. They are hosting Michelin. Currently, Porto, a 1.5 goal favorite with almost all the juice. Total is 3, juice pretty heavily to over. Porto have been a goal-scoring team. That's not something I've known Porto to be, especially not in their Champions League runs. But this is a good spot for them to get I believe a Danish minnow in Michelin coming in, though Michelin have certainly been in Champions League recently and have performed very well and are always in these competitions, it seems. I think the Porto side is one I'd like to be against, the big name, and it's a big price, and it's bigger than I made it, but I don't know if that'll actually make it to my card on Thursday afternoon. Next, we'll go to Rangers hosting Tottenham as Tottenham make a short trip from London to Glasgow in Scotland. Rangers a 0.5 goal underdog at home with all the juice. Total is 3.25, just pretty heavily to under right now. Tottenham, I mean, good luck trying to figure out what they're going to do and how they're going to perform. The high line is always dangerous. The Rangers crowd is going to be nuts. It usually travels really well, and I think it will play really, really well at home too. For that reason, I'll take Rangers a 0.5 goal underdog at home. I don't know that I want much to do with the total. Above 3 is usually for me, but not with Tottenham Hotspur. Moving 2 more matches to go before we get to the ultimate best bet. Real Sociedad, a 1.5 goal favorite at home to Dinamo Kiev. Total is 2.75. Juice really heavily to under, and a lot of juice on the Real Sociedad side. So Real Sociedad have basically were not scoring goals for the first couple of months of the season. They've turned that around. They've done better scoring in Europa League than they have in La Liga. Had a big win on the road at Leganés with a total that closed below 2. I think that says the state of the Real Sociedad offense certainly speaks to Leganés as well, newly promoted side that certainly just wants to control the ball and run the clock out for 90 minutes each match plus stoppage time. But Dinamo Kiev, they are a younger group. They to me, have talent, as do most Ukrainian sides, but they have no home, and that probably helps them or benefits them a little bit because the difference between playing away matches and matches in a like German or maybe Budapest or something like that city is not the same as playing at home. I just don't know that I really want to get involved with. So Real Sociedad, I don't trust to score a ton of goals, but Aurora, they do have the momentum behind them. And Dinamo Kiev, I just feel like they are naive and they make big mistakes, and that won't work because Real Sociedad will possess this game. And to me, I feel like Real Sociedad is best on the counterattack. They want to possess the ball, though, and that will certainly keep Dinamo Kiev in this matchup because they won't have to face the counterattacks that are such higher XG than trying to create versus set defense. You can see that across all sports. I feel all sports that I cover on the Betting Pitch Podcast Network, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on YouTube at @the_Real_G Warner. But I think if I had to go with something in this matchup, I think I'd probably try to take the extra goals offered with the under 2.75. It's very juiced at the moment at BetOnline, Sportsbetting.ag. And if you're not a member at either of those sites, go sign up. There's links in the podcast descriptions, or just hit me up at @the_Real_G Warner across whichever social media platform you wish. So that gets us to now the last matchup on this list for the Europa League. Then I'll give an ultimate best bet coming end of show with a gaudy record, and of course, would love for you to join and follow along as much as possible on all the various platforms. But so the last matchup is Slavia Prague. They are hosting Anderlecht of Belgium. Slavia Prague from Prague, surprisingly. Total is 2.75, just pretty much all the way to over. And Anderlecht having a ton of juice themselves, even more so on 1.25 goal underdogs. Look like that's going to move back down to 1. Anderlecht, to me, have some talent. They have also a crowd ban for, I guess, some bad behavior that's not allowing them to send anyone to Prague for this matchup. That will certainly help, though Slavia Prague travels really, really well. And I feel like they'll have a huge crowd support at home, but I also feel like away from home, they deserve a little bit of respect. And certainly saw that last year live in Stadio Olimpico when I was watching Roma against Slavia Prague, and got stuck because the outdoor whatever ticket scanner wouldn't work, and I couldn't get in the stadium. And literally 2 minutes in the game, this huge eruption happened because Romelu Lukaku scored. Or actually, no, I don't. Maybe it was the Polish fullback. But anyway, I think Lukaku scored later, and I was in for that. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But Slavia Prague are good, and they've played well in this competition. Anderlecht are also talented, though. And so to me, seeing Anderlecht a 1.25 goal underdog is pretty significant and tells me that there's a bigger divide in these teams than I thought. That makes me lean to Anderlecht. It also makes me, as always, like under 2.75. And I feel like that number is inflated, and you get a lot more bang for your buck on an under 2.75, potentially 3, based on where the juice sits right now for Slavia Prague side that are usually very conservative and will do a lot to try to keep Anderlecht out, especially if they take the lead. Slavia Prague is a big favorite, though. They probably wouldn't love falling behind, and that would probably make this total in real danger, especially with Anderlecht as a big underdog. But I feel like that's part of the risk of gambling, the risk of betting on soccer, of course, is that first goal is so important. But Anderlecht, I feel like they have some young talent. I don't know that they're going to roof as many out top of the box goals like they did in a win against Real Sociedad, speaking of earlier this season. But I feel like the underdog is certainly a lot bigger than I expected, a lot more inflated, and that also correlates to a total. And I think I like under 2.75 the most in that matchup. So for the ultimate best bet portion of the show, thank you for coming along. You came along all the way here. If you're looking for sports books, I've got plenty of new ones. I've been doing some research on them that I found a really great one lately. I'm trying to figure out if I can get a deal with them to try to help you all. Thank you to my loyal subscribers, of course, across all the platforms, pregame and on Patreon and here on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or on Spotify or on Instagram. You've all been great, and I totally support that. Someday when this totally takes off and I'm doing this not just in my own apartment, I will certainly not forget any of you, but trying to find a way to make it so I can make it a little bit easier to kind of give you this new place that I found. But stay tuned for that. And if you want to slide in my DMs, I'm certainly happy to explain and maybe give you the link that way. But been with BetOnline and Sportsbetting.ag forever, and want to make sure that if you are not a member at either of those sites, you've been at one and not the other, go sign up, get some free money. I think it's a 50% match for your first deposit. So go take a look and get on that. Of course, already mentioned on this platform, we have, or wherever you're getting this podcast, we have NFL podcasts every Tuesday night with A_Schnicker. Go through a six pack of games and get you an idea of where lines will move and where we'll be ending up on Sunday afternoon, evening, Monday night, Thursday night, whenever the games are in that professional American football. But it's time for the ultimate best bet. I'm going to try to get my phone ready so I can get this out on the interwebs potentially sooner rather than later, because I feel like the late posts I run out of time every match day. But so in this ultimate best bet, I picked my favorite best bet from the early window and the late window from the Europa League. Actually, I haven't given you my late window, and that will be Rangers, a 0.5 goal underdog at home to Tottenham. So there we go. There's that. But I'll remind you in about 10 seconds about where this all will go. And of course, we'll try to get this all going in the right direction as soon as I make sure that I have everything lined up, set up the way I needed it to be. Of course, that will never happen, but live, that's how this all goes. Okay, we're 32 minutes in. It's time for the ultimate best bet. Hey, this is real_G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube. This is the ultimate best bet, the Europa League edition. We're 18-4, 1-8-4, and this entire season for ultimate best bets. We're 9-0 last 9, 14-1 last 15. What I do is I pick my favorite from all the leagues I'm covering, whichever podcast we're doing for the soccer stuff. Today is Europa League, and I went with an early window and a late window. So my best bet from the early window, it's Victoria Plzen, a 1-goal underdog at home to Manchester United. In the late window, I like Rangers Football Club, a 0.5 goal underdog to Tottenham Hotspur. And what I do is I pick my favorite one. You can grade my podcast and say how I did based on that, and give me Rangers at 0.5 goal as my best bet for this episode. I just feel like the Rangers have a huge crowd support. I think Tottenham are one of the more scary teams to back, so I like to be out against them. And as a 0.5 goal favorite, Tottenham have to win away. So give me Rangers in Glasgow, pulling an upset or maybe just getting a draw. And that'll do it for this episode. Thank you all for tuning in. I will see you on the next episode, whenever that comes out, which will be Friday for Saturday, most likely. Maybe if I get something done Friday morning, we'll see. Thank you for the support as always, and I look forward to the next recording. And make sure you hit subscribe, follow, leave a 5-star review. That's huge for the search rankings.
Recording stopped.